My name is Mike Dart.
And I am Richard Wagner.
We're back.
Do exactly as we say and no one gets hurt.
Radio waves and other noises is on the air, and this is the last of our Don Barrett interview, the late, great Don Barrett, a great radio historian that I was able to do an interview with around 2000. And this is the last segment. We've done 5 other segments. This is segment 6. It's going to be on talk radio. And again, it's a history of LA radio, of modern LA radio. And we're not covering every talk show and every talk radio station because a lot's happened since 2000 in talk radio, especially in talk radio. Okay, let's go. Don Barrett talks about the modern history of talk radio in LA.
We got just a very few minutes left. We could do this for hours, I think. The one area that we have not covered, which is the mainstay of radio these days, is talk radio.
More people are listening to talk radio than any other format today. It's interesting how it has evolved. You go back to the 60s, and certainly here in L.A. with Joe Pine and how controversial he was to go gargle with razor blades. He would tell somebody he didn't like, an audience member. But the radio stations like KABC and even KFI in the early days, they catered to a very small part of the population, generally older, a lot of blind folks. They would talk about subjects that were really kind of esoteric and just kind of out there. But the whole talk radio has exploded, and Rush Limbaugh can be, whether you like his politics or not, certainly has been on the forefront of the vortex of this whole explosion from the early 90s through today.
What we're going to listen to now first is a little profile of an earlier KFI, not the KFI of today, but the profile is also voiced by another very endearing voice in LA radio, one that the people of your website loved and still pay tribute to him all the time, and that's, of course, Mark Dennis, who was in LA radio. He did everything in LA radio. He was a jock. He did traffic. He did weather. He did sports. He did news. He did it all.
When he died quite suddenly a couple of years ago, it was interesting to see the outpouring of love at his funeral memorial service. Not only did every radio station person come together, regardless if they competed against him or with him, he was endeared and loved by everybody. They just recently named an interchange on the freeways in Southern California after Mark Dennis.
So this is him voicing a profile of KFI from a few years ago.
Start your morning with the KFI Morning News. It's a show full of frequent news updates, traffic from Mike Nolan, KFI in the Sky, exclusive 3-day weather forecasts, and sports too. Frequent news and information, and the unpredictable, fun, refreshing team of Tracy Miller and Terry Ray Elmer. TNT in the morning.
Those are the stories we're following in the KFI News Center.
And there's a lot of people who want that job, I understand. Seriously, they've got people lining up to become giant condoms.
No.
Yes, they do.
Those are the stories.
It's a tough city to get a gig in, Terry.
Really?
Yeah.
So somebody is thinking this is going to lead to their big break.
Well, if it does, there'll be real trouble then.
Starting at 9 a.m., catch Rush Limbaugh with his own irreverent brand of conservative logic.
The Boy Scouts do not harm America. And swearing an oath to God doesn't harm America. And why in the world we have to continue to kowtow and pander to atheists of all things is beyond me. We, and I mean conservatives, we are fighting back.
At noon, join Dr. Barbara DeAngelis. She's informative and answers your questions on love and relationships.
Your children need 2 things, and I always say this. They need to see happiness, and they need to see love.
Oh, I'm very good pretender.
Children know when their parents are unhappy. They feel it. How can they live with a mother who's not attracted to daddy? What are they learning? They're learning denial.
Here at 2, listen to Dr. Dean Adele for the latest developments in medicine and answers to even the most unusual medical questions.
My son was married recently, and he went to his bachelor party and at a topless bar, and one of the dancers there had just had a baby, and she squeezed some milk from her breast and hit him in the eye. If she should happen to be carrying the AIDS virus, could he get it from that kind of exposure?
The AIDS virus can appear in breast milk. We know that. We know the AIDS virus appears in tears. While it probably could be possible, the odds would be so long on something like that.
KFI AM 640 has hosts who tackle controversial topics, who are not afraid to step on toes. Hosts such as Tom Likas, 3 p.m. on KFI.
It seems to me that for most people, democracy has just become too much work. You have to get up every day, you have to read the paper beyond the sports section. Maybe you'll have to subscribe to Newsweek or Time magazine and keep up with this stuff, and we're just a little too busy to do that now, aren't we? Aren't we? Come on, you feel badly about this. You know you do because the shoe fits too well.
Joe Crummey addresses issues strange and serious, but always keeps a sense of humor. 7 o'clock on KFI.
The reason for sex is procreation.
Yes.
And you cannot procreate through a homosexual act. Period.
I know that, but
no
why does
ifs,
it make it
ands, or
bad?
buts.
Well, there are some buts involved. I'm saying you said it, Elizabeth.
Oh, my gosh.
Night Owl, stay informed with Larry King.
Bill Cosby's our special guest tonight. Larry King is our host, ladies and gentlemen, and we're on the air. Go ahead, right. Simona,
Wait a
California.
Minute. They haven't called yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And don't forget, KFI is the flagship station for the Los Angeles Raiders.
There goes Horton in motion to the right. The play goes to Allen, off left tackle, driving, touchdown Raiders.
This is Talk Radio, a forum for new thoughts and fresh ideas, a place to learn, and an opportunity to express yourself. Get involved with our newsmakers and our newsbreakers of today and tomorrow. Talk Radio invites your participation. Talk Radio is
Michael Jackson.
Hello there, I am Michael Jackson. This is Talk Radio. Happy to be with you on this Friday, the 15th day of June. Let me describe the gentleman with me. To meet him, you'd never guess who he is and what he's done. He's a quiet, elegant gentleman who runs marathons, happens to be a vice president of ABC Radio, but he has also in the past been the program director of stations, biggies like WMGM, WINS, WABC, which he built into the most listened to station in the nation. This quiet adjunct professor of communication arts at St. John's University is a man who helped format, was in the forefront of the rock radio revolution. His name is Rick Sklar, who has, with a fine book called Rocking America, told the story of the rise of all-hit radio, Top 40. He was with it and a very active part of all the changes in the boom years of American music radio from its inception or birth back in 1954. Yes, Pops, it's 30 years old when Alan Freed's Rock and Roll Party first aired in New York on WINS through the 60s and Beatlemania to the current resurgence. So as Casey might say, welcome all you finger-popping daddies as we pick them up and lay them down on the boss of the bay. And that takes me back. A little later, I'm sure Casey Kasem will call through and Dan Ingram, and maybe you're a rock jock somewhere, or were. Or just somebody who grew up with the music and loved it. Or maybe a parent who hates it. Our guest is Rick Sklar. Our subject, if you care to speak of rock, the history of rock and radio, DJs, music, whatever. Welcome, sir. Good to have you with us.
Oh, delightful to be here.
Why 40? Why was it top 40? What was magic about that number?
Well, the number really wasn't magic, and as it became refined on WABC, we got it down to 20 records and sometimes a dozen and a half current records. But the original 40 records were the capacity of a jukebox in the early 1950s.
And did the records have to be particularly short so you could get plenty of them in?
Traditionally, at that point in time, records were not more than 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes once in a while.
And then there were the days of payola. When were they?
Well, that was going on, I gather, in the late 1950s because it came out broke out into public and to an investigation in 1959 and 60.
Does that form of radio make money? I know it gets listeners.
Well, sure,
besides selling pimple cream, what else can it do?
When it's done properly, as we did it on WABC, it was not just the number one teen station. WABC was number one in men number one in women, and even once in grandparents.
Really?
Yes.
You know what I'd like to do is turn back to the halcyon days and have you hear a little bit of what WABC was all about.
All because they're young action. Dwayne Eddy.
Okay, there's sort of an overview of talk radio, some of the stars of talk radio, finishing up there with Michael Jackson, who recently left the airways in L.A.
Well, he will resurface. He's had a way of, after 3 decades with KABC, he's anxious to get back on the air.
Right. And then KFI, of course, included Rush Limbaugh and Tom Likas, who is now over at 97.1. 97.1 being kind of the first FM talk station, at least in L.A.
Well, when you have as your anchor Howard Stern, what you do after that is kind of a mirror of what happens, and they've been very successful in doing that.
Right. Well, that brings us to the end. Don, we could go another 2 hours easily.
All right.
And there's somebody at the door wanting to come in here.
That's been great, Mike. No problem. I love it.
Greatly appreciated. I'm a big fan of yours and a big fan of the website.
Okay, that wraps up our 6-part interview with Don Barrett, who was the keeper of all history of LA radio when he was alive.
Keeper and cheerleader. And he found details that you wouldn't necessarily know about on his website, things that you find interesting about it. But in talking to him in an interview, you realize what a great mind he had, both for remembering the history and understanding the dynamics of radio itself.
Absolutely, without a doubt. So that covers it. We've done 6 weeks worth. Now we're going to sit back for a month, and we will be back in a month with radio waves and other noises. Mm-hmm. But in the next couple weeks, we'll be hearing from you, right?
Yes, SoCal Radio Waves.
And that will be the spinoff of this show, which Richard will be doing both shows. I'll be doing just this one, and then Richard will be on his own on the other one. Give us a little preview.
I'm trying to line up some early guests for some of the first shows. And again, it's going to try to maintain its positiveness. The Don Barrett inspiration is really hitting me. So it's going to try to focus on the positives of radio and try to bring out the best of radio and highlight the stations that are doing what we think are doing it right.
Great. So look forward to more of this show, Radio Waves and Other Noises. We'll be back in a month. And keep an eye out. Richard will be promoting his show on the Radio Waves and Other Noises Facebook page. Be sure and like our Facebook page and subscribe on Spotify or YouTube or any of the platforms. Give us a high review if you would. That would be appreciative. And we'll be back again, like I said, in a month with another edition of Radio Waves and Other Noises.
We will see you then.